What are you fishing for in life? I find myself asking that question a lot. I love fishing because you never know what's going to get them to bite. And you have to figure it out. Every day changes. When conditions change, you have to change. Some days they might be hitting a buzzbait. Some days they might be hitting a Cinco, Texas rigged. It's a huge puzzle, and it's a lot of unanswered questions that you have to figure out. I think I'm addicted to that pattern, asking questions, figuring things out. And my dad fostered that from a very young age. He did everything in his power to fuel my passion for knowledge. It was positive reinforcement. He paid me $100 the day I beat him at chess. He gave me $100 the day I outran him. He was constantly setting goals for me. And instead of leading through fear tactics, it was all positive reinforcement. And I asked him so many questions all the time. Dad, where do bass live? Dad, what kind of fish is that? He used to call a carp a golden bass because I caught a 5-pounder one time as a kid, and then he hauled in a carp. He had a great sense of humor. I think humor is important to diffuse some of the stress, and nature is important. And I love fishing, and I love coaching, and I love playing the guitar because it centers me, it grounds me. It gets me back to where I can feel like myself. I can rise above the storm and picture the blue sky. Because I think when we live in our stress and in our anxiety, it's a storm. It's an electrical storm. It's a hormonal storm. And we have to figure out how to calm the storm. And fishing does that for me. But what are you fishing for in life? What if religion and spirituality is about asking the right questions more than feeling like we have the answers? And for me, that's what this journey is about. Losing my father and losing my sister, both prematurely, both in very different ways. One very sudden and public, the other excruciatingly long process where she suffered. You're faced with questions of morality. You're faced with questions of spirituality. And I had to go inward. I had to go deeper inside of myself to really figure out what it is that I believe, what it is that I want to believe. And as a kid, Dad never stifled that. Again, he fed it. Dad made movies of his family with high 8 cameras and clunky video editing software, and he put us on vacations in slow motion with movie tracks over it, like Randy Edelman and Hans Zimmer. It was beautiful, and he didn't do it for likes or comments. There wasn't even YouTube. He did it for us. He did it for himself. He was the director, and we were the cast. And it was beautiful. He left us such a legacy. And we had a dream to make Hollywood films together. At the top of the pyramid in one of our Gleason video meetings, it said Hollywood Films right at the top. At the bottom was sports, and then weddings, and then documentaries and B-roll movies, and then at the top it was Hollywood movies. I mean, he was writing a book. We would sit in the shed we called the stockade at night and look out over the acreage and the moonlit pond, and we would talk about life. We would talk about God. We would talk about his book and movie ideas. And he was taken so early. I tried to carry that on. And then I had a son at the age of 21, and nothing became more important than that. I had to put some of my ambitions on the shelf. I wanted to go to New York Film Academy. That was a dream of mine. But nothing was more important than being a good father to that boy. And eventually got married and then had 2 more kids. And we're a beautiful family. I wouldn't change that for the world. But I've had to find things that help itch that scratch that I had, that burning desire to create, to tell stories, to make film. Because stories is what has carried the species throughout the ages, telling good stories. But what I question now is, are those stories needing an update? The same virtues that hold true throughout the universe, they should be true whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Buddhist, whether you're Muslim. Doesn't matter what faith. Doesn't matter what denomination. Those virtues, they should be true, right? So if we seek those and we seek knowledge and we're not afraid to ask questions, aren't we on the right path? And the more we focus on the differences, doesn't that just create more turmoil? Doesn't that create more animosity amongst us humans? And I love movies. I love movies like Interstellar. I love movies like Inception. Those type of movies where reality isn't what it seems, like The Matrix. Those are my favorite type of movies, because I think we live in a world where things aren't what they seem. We want to believe that we know how things are and why things are, because that brings us comfort. We don't like not knowing. We don't like the idea that we may not know where we're going after this life. So we cling to the stories that we've been told. We cling to the narrative that if we do this, we'll get this. And that makes us feel comfortable. And I don't think it's bad or wrong. Ignorance is bliss is sometimes what you have to do. That's the idea that you have to adopt in order to get out of the panic mode sometimes. When you're dark and depressed, sometimes just not thinking about everything and going to the simple formula and putting your head in the sand. I think that that's what some people do because it's safe. But is our own mental safety, is our own mental capacity more important than the safety of our race, of our species? And you might be asking, you're being dramatic. Like, people can think whatever they want to think, and that's not going to mean the end of the world. Well, there's already been 5 mass extinctions. It just reasons that a 6th one will happen. I don't know if it's in 10 years, 100, 1,000, a million. I really don't. But if and when that happens, if there's still as much animosity that exists today between the Eastern world and the Western world, I don't think we're going to make it out alive. And maybe we'll take an event like that for everybody to drop the dogma, and maybe doctrine won't matter at that point because it will be just survival. Maybe it'll happen just naturally. But until that time comes, I think to live a good life, we have to seek that. And everybody's journey should be different. It can't all be the same. We're all not the same. We're all different. And as a child, should we be telling them stories and making them believe the things that we think that they should believe? Or should we be showing them how to ask the right questions? Should we be scaring them into believing something so that they behave in a certain way, using fear tactics, basically? And you can argue all you want, but telling somebody they're going to hell, that's a fear tactic. That's getting them to adopt a certain value because they believe if they do, they will not go to hell. No, nobody, especially a kid, wants to think about burning in hell. What a scary thought. Eternal damnation. And again, it might come from a good place, but it is a form of manipulation. I mean, everything we do with children is, right? I'm not saying it's bad to scare them. I'll tell my kid, don't go in the street. You could get killed by a car. But that's a fact. When you use allegory and stories, which whether you believe they're true or not, they're still stories. We have to really be careful if we're going to try and influence them with fear tactics, if we don't know 100% that what we're telling them is the truth. Now, again, there is so many theological arguments and scholars that can back up any religious text that you want. And I'm not even beginning to claim that I'm a theologian, not in any way, shape, or form. I just know that confirmation bias is real, and that you can find data to back up almost anything you want. Now, the Bible, for instance, is filled with goodness and wonderful acts of humanity, and I think that people should use that manuscript as part of a model to learn from. No doubt about it. But why is it that the dogmatic part of it, why is it so important that those conditions, those conditional statements, for instance, if you believe in Jesus, you will be saved. If you don't, you will burn in hell. That's a condition. It's not unconditional. Love from a parent to a child should be unconditional. Love from a God to his people should be unconditional. But most doctrines are filled with conditions, and a lot of people struggle with that. And that's just natural. There's so much out there on YouTube and on the internet about science and the universe and the origin of the universe and where we came from and the fact that we came from stardust. You know, some of the times I felt the most spiritual was when I was watching a documentary on the origin of the universe and contemplating the fact that the earth is billions of years old and the universe is even older. What a miracle that we are here. And is that not enough to feel spiritual, to feel connected to God? And not for some people. They have to go further. They have to be tribal with it. They have to say, we have to believe this in addition to those virtues, this in addition to those facts and or fiction that science muddles up. But to me, I don't think most people are comfortable rejecting science, rejecting dinosaurs, rejecting a lot of the information that is put out there for us to digest. And they're told on the other side, their spiritual side, their religious doctrine, these facts. And so there's this void, there's this gap in between that they don't understand. So we're kind of taught to just ignore it. You know, put your head in the sand. It's okay. Just have faith. Just believe. And I think faith is good. I think we do have to have faith. I think we do need belief. I think that was very important to the development and the evolution of our species, because it gives us hope when people are dying, when there's death. If you don't have hope, if you don't have faith, you start asking yourself, why are we even doing this? Why are we even here? And it makes it very hard to enjoy the life you're living. So I do believe faith, and I do believe a higher power is something that we should try and seek and try and understand. But as soon as we start pigeonholing faith, as soon as we start putting parameters on it and boundaries on it, you know, believe this, just have faith, but it's conditional, only if X, Y, Z. You know, what if we could just start removing some of those boundaries a little bit? And I don't think it deconstructs the faith part of it. I don't think it deconstructs the God part of it, the higher power piece. I think that it just removes some boundaries that have been set by us because, well, we're tribal in nature. Well, think about it. Animals are tribal. Lions versus hyenas, that's tribal. That makes sense. They're different species. They are not the same animal. Humans are all the same animals, all the same species, but we're tribal because we had to be at the beginning and all throughout evolution just to survive. You know, we had to create tribes and all around the world. We didn't know there were other tribes. You know, we were independent tribes. And then as the world evolved and as humanity and society evolved, we started finding each other. We started living amongst each other. We started commingling, and America is a great example of a melting pot of that commingling. I think that going back to the beginning of time, to the beginning of species, to the beginning of the evolution of the human brain, we have so much ingrained in us and so much wired into our DNA that it makes it really hard to be a good human sometimes and fight animalistic urges. But that is what is required of us. You hear it over and over again in ancient texts. 10 Commandments, for instance: thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet, thou shalt not commit adultery, those types of things. Those are all things animals do. So is forming a tribe. So if our major doctrines say that basically we shouldn't be like animals, and tribalism is essentially being animal, shouldn't we seek to remove some of that? I'm not saying we all have to be best buddies, and I'm not saying we all have to drop our culture and strip us away of the traditions that we love. I'm not saying that we don't celebrate Christmas and Easter, and those are traditions. Even for people that aren't devout Christians, we celebrate Christmas. We celebrate Easter. We celebrate those traditions of our culture, and that's important. I'm not saying we strip that. I'm not saying we stop that. I'm saying if we want people to love us better and we want to love people better, then we have to be willing to acquiesce a little bit, just like in an argument. And you can't win an argument with your spouse, for instance, just going bullheaded straight on with your point of view. You have to give a little bit. Now, you might be saying, I don't care about everybody else. I only care about me. I only care about my family. I don't really want to love other people. I don't care if they love me. Screw them. Well, that's definitely one way to look at it. And sometimes you do have to be selfish. And that's okay. But as a whole, again, being a good person, being somebody that is, in my opinion, in the light of God, that I would imagine a loving God and an omnipotent God would want us to be servant of others and not just ourselves. So if our faith is just for us and we don't care about everybody else, that's a little selfish in nature. If we only care about our life, our mindset, what happens to me, my soul, that's selfish. I mean, in essence, no negative connotation around it. Don't get upset, but it is selfish. And if we're not careful and everybody's selfish, then we're not going to be able to face the challenges that humanity is inevitably going to encounter, whether that's mass extinction, whether that's global warming, whether that's economic crisis. I mean, when the shit hits the fan, if there aren't millions of people out there that are leaders in philosophy and leaders in thought, there's going to be mass chaos. At the end, what I really want is for me and my family, selfishly, to live a good life, to be happy. And I think that's okay. But I also have a deep burning desire to help our society and our species as a whole. I think that it's no different than when the caveman first lit his fire and was amazed and he wanted to share it. The people that lived through that first phase of evolution, they wanted to share things. And the people who didn't want to share things, they died off. And so you end up with a product of, it's deep down in us to want to share goodness, at least some of us. And it might be there for all of us, but some of us listen to what's inside more than others. And I think that's part of spirituality and religion too. What is inside of you? I think God lives in us. I think the higher power, it sparks a physical being. It brings to life our flesh, and we are an image of that. But I think that energy, I think that power, I think it's eternal. We can tap into it by going inward, by meditating, by removing ourselves from the external of our lives. And that's what meditation and prayer is. To me, meditation and prayer, it's synonymous. And we can't be afraid to say that. I think some people who are devout Christians, they kind of reject the idea of meditation because it alludes to the fact that maybe there isn't a God in the way that I think that I've been told and that I think that exists. And that to me it's divisive. It creates confusion. It creates a place for people to have resentment. And when you get two people to talk about it, they're very defensive because their whole belief structures were built on these ideas. As soon as you start to attack that foundation, very naturally people get defensive. So how do we unwind it, unpeel it without making others feel like we're attacking them? How do we have these conversations? How do we go fishing for the right questions? How do we make sure that we come across from a place of love and not a place of hate? How do we get more people involved in these conversations and start asking the right questions? Start asking more questions. Start understanding fear and anxiety. Start battling that holistically without medicine. I'm not saying that medicine is bad. I've had to use medicine for a stint of my life to help really get a grasp on what it means to be anxious. I had panic attacks and I've had trauma, but the way through it is holistic. And that's where I think God and a higher power and nature and wisdom, and for me, Stoicism comes into play. You can look at things from a different perspective. You can understand what is going on in your body. And when you see that it's an evolutionary tactic, that it's a fight or flight response, and that you have physical responses as well in conjunction with that, you might still feel anxious, but you at least know you're not going to die. And you have to ask yourself that question. Is something in front of me that's going to kill me? Is there a bear in front of me? I've asked myself that many times. No, there's not. So the only thing to fight or run from is in my head. Your subconscious is so powerful. What you tell it believes. The narrative to yourself is so powerful because your subconscious is designed to react. Your body is designed to automatically default to react to certain stimulus, and the fight or flight is one of them. It doesn't know the difference if you're getting ready to fight somebody to defend your family. It doesn't know the difference between you fighting a mountain lion and you telling your subconscious that nothing is okay, that everything's wrong, that you are scared. You're scared of all the things you can't control. And when you focus on the things you can't control and you get scared and you get anxious and you get overwhelmed and you don't know what to do, you're sending so many red flags to your subconscious that it can't help but create that stress hormone cortisol and trigger the fight or flight response. And then you feel foggy and you can't think, and it's just an endless loop. So how do we end the loop? That to me is also a very important part of my journey. It's not just spiritual. It's fighting the anxiety demons. You can call it the devil, you can call it whatever, but there is a way to understand it better. And we don't do enough as a society to address it, to equip our youth with the tools that are needed to fight it. You know, my dad died, but he equipped me with so many tools before he left. He gave me books on religion. He gave me books on How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. He gave me books by Leo Tolstoy, by Viktor Frankl, A Man's Search for Meaning. It was a constant just find your own answers. He was constantly pushing me and encouraging me to ask questions, but find your own answers. This is your personal journey. And I think when you teach a kid that, and they're not scared growing up, it morphs into something different. It allowed me at least to handle the stress and anxiety way better when he was killed or when my sister passed. I don't think it's better. I don't think that I am a prophet. I don't want to come off as sanctimonious. What I want is what I've always wanted. I want to tell stories, make film. I love film and awesome epic music over it in slow motion, and evoking a response from people and moving people. When I watch a good movie, I am moved. When I watch a movie and I cry, that is moving to me. I think that's what it is. I don't know if it's at the bottom of it or at the base of it, but I have a desire to move people, to tell stories that elicit an emotional response and gets them to think, because it has impacted me so much in my life when I watch a good movie. And we have a lot of stories from the past that are good, and there's a lot of people who are searching for more updated versions of those stories that integrates science and, in fact, more of the modern world, more of the 21st century. There's so much more out there today than there was 2,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. We understand the world so much better. I'm not a scientist, but I have 100 times better understanding of quantum mechanics than somebody did living in a cave 10,000 years ago. I might as well be Albert Einstein compared to those people, probably more. I just want to, for my own benefit, delve into this and create things because it's good for me. And I want to be able to provide for my family at the same time, not have to shelf all of my desires and all of my aspirations and just figure out small things that I can do, like create videos sitting in my fishing boat talking about all this and figuring out a way to edit it so that people might actually want to watch it, or not even just watch it. I do care about likes and comments. I'm not going to lie. Like, I do look at that stuff, but what I really want to do is move people. And with anything you love, the better you are at it. I'm very competitive. The more you want to do it, the better you want to do it. So obviously it's measurable by how many people you move, by the followers, the likes, the comments. But I have to tell myself all the time, don't get too caught up in that. Just be you. Do what it is that you want to do. Have fun. Be a good person. Do the right things. Be a good father. Be a good husband. Be a good coach. Try and figure out how to catch a big bag of bass. Try and figure out where that big buck's living and get back to nature often. And when you are anxious, get back to it frequently and just be present amidst all the noise. We have to figure out how to get away from all the noise that's around us constantly. And that's my mission currently. So I don't know how long this video is going to end up being when I edit it, if it's going to stay in this long form or what. But if you watched this whole thing, or if you watched parts of it and you resonated, please interact, please comment, please like, please subscribe, whatever medium it is that you're watching this on. Just give me a little encouragement that, hey, I see you, I see what you're doing, because if so, I'll make more videos like this. I will put more stuff out there like it. If not, I might go a different direction that's just more for me and not be so worried about what everybody else hears and sees. But the fact that I like to make film, it kind of coincides with what I'm feeling. And I'm just going to keep going. So keep the shark moving. When the water stops moving over its gills, it dies. So just like a shark, you got to keep moving forward. That's our family's motto. It's tattooed on my chest. And that's what I'm going to do for the rest of today, the rest of this week, the rest of this month, year, and my life. Just keep moving forward no matter what. One foot in front of the other, no matter how tough it gets, no matter what stress we're dealing with our job, with our marriage, with our relationships. One foot in front of the other every day. Do something to help your brain, help your soul, whether that's read, whether that is be outside, play the guitar. You have to get back to going inward in your thought and outward and present in nature to put together a formula that leads to a good, happy life on this planet, in this life that we live. I think personally, now here's my spiritual opinion, that's what God would want. He created us. It's a miracle we're here. We literally came from the explosions of stars and millions of years of atoms crushing into each other and planets forming, and we're here, we're alive. Why wouldn't we want to live this life to the best of our ability? We don't know about the afterlife. Like, we actually don't know what it looks like. So if we're more worried about the afterlife than this life, I think we're missing the boat. No pun intended. But let's worry about this life, and the afterlife will take care of itself. I believe that. Now there's some of my beliefs. I do believe that. I do believe in a higher power. I do believe there's energy out there that underlies everything. I love that movie Avatar because James Cameron did a wonderful job of telling that story, of putting that premise out there into the universe, that the Awa is under everything, and the Amitakaya, they drew into that. They tap into it. I love that idea. We got to tap into it. We got to do that in our own way. We got to find our own ways to do that. It's not going to be the same for everybody. It's going to be so different for everybody. And we have to be open and willing to accept that and ask the right questions and ask the hard questions and be willing to maybe change a little bit of the way we think. So, like, comment, subscribe, share. I would be very appreciative. And you have a blessed rest of your day. And go tell somebody that you love them.